tell the praise band good work. Yeah, they're great tonight. I really, man, I love it when God does this. So Hannah is in charge of picking songs and putting stuff together, and I didn't tell her what we're talking about tonight at all. And like that, particularly that last song was perfect. So I'm thankful to God for that. But we're in week 3 of Sex to the Max. If you were new with us and don't know what that is, this is our sex series. I stopped doing True Love Waits a long time ago, and just it's a long story. But anyway, we made up our own, and this is week 3. And we're excited you're here to hang out with us. We're going to be looking at a lot of stuff. But before we dive into really the new part of this week's lesson, we're going to do a quick review. Specifically, a quick review for starters. What's something you've heard me say or learned besides just the word sex? Okay? Just anything you remember from the first 2 weeks. What do you got, sweetie? God made sex. Very good. Yes. And that sounds simplistic, but that's actually a huge, huge deal. Sex was not an accident. Sex was God's idea. It was His design. He made it for a reason. Made it for multiple reasons. We're going to talk about one of those reasons tonight. But yes, sex is very much a God and a good and a godly thing. It's just something that we goof up. What else? Yes, ma'am. Very good. Yes, absolutely. I don't know why my ringer's on. I don't know who's calling me, but we're going to ignore them, okay? So, yes, absolutely. Sex is a married thing. We're going to get to that more tonight. Yes, sir.
About 6% of kids from middle school and younger have already had sex.
Well, no, not quite. 6% of 12-year-olds. There you go. Yeah. Not 6% of kid at young. Sadly, that number at young is a little bit higher than that. But yeah. Yes, sir. Say again? Yes, yeah, that's pretty scary. 40% of teenagers who have had sex have an STD. In fact, there's a pretty good basis that most of those sexually active people have more than one STD. Yes, sir. Yes, yeah, which is actually exciting because 10 years ago, the reverse was true. 54% of teenagers 10 years ago had had sex by age 18. Now that trend is down to 46. Or, I'm sorry, not by age 18. 40% of total teenagers, so 13 to 19. That was 54, now it's 46. So that trend's heading in the right direction. All right, awesome. So now here's kind of the big one. Got this phrase up here. Oh, Kate, you can go and jump forward, dear. That's, okay. Okay, well, there you go. Awesome. That's okay. Shh, I gotta get a clicker, man. Love is. You've heard me say something about love in every lesson so far. What is it? Say what? I haven't said either of the things on the screen yet. Yeah, that's new information. So far, though, I have used this statement. I've said that love is the greatest motivator. And it's true. And I really like this quote. There you go. It's by Eric Riordan, and I don't know if I'm saying his name right or not. Rick Riordan, sorry. It's the guy who wrote the Percy Jackson books. I don't know if I'm saying his name right or not, but I really like this quote of his. My point is that love is the most powerful motivator in the world. It spurs mortals to greatness. Their noblest, bravest acts are done for love. Okay? And that's written in a fictional book, but that's generally a pretty true statement. Love causes us to do a number of things, even us hard-hearted guys, right? It motivates us to run through walls and do crazy stuff. So something funny about me, Chris, I still feel like I'm super loud, dude. Awesome. Keep going. There you go. Good. So when I was literally out of my mind on Sunday, and if you don't know what we're talking about, so on Sunday our church had a 5K, and so it's called Faster the Pastor. We do it every year, and so I ran the 5K like everybody else, and I'd taken this medicine that dried my body out, and so when I finished, I don't actually remember finishing. I remember starting my final sprint to finish, and my mind just went blank, and I literally woke up in a hospital. It's like an hour and a half later is when I was conscious, but my brain wasn't conscious enough to remember things. What's funny about the brain is, like, my mind is trying to fill in the blanks, so when people tell me stories, I'm like, do I remember that or do I not remember that? And people are having fun with me. They're like, oh yeah, like you were dancing on tables and, it's whatever, right? But my wife, who I absolutely trust and was with me for the vast majority of the time, has told me some pretty interesting things, specifically the things that I was talking about. And this is the way she presented it to me. She said, I know that you love me because you were not only talking to me, but you were talking about me. There were times when she was with me and I didn't realize it, so I was talking about my wife, right? Like at one point I was crying, like just full on, lots of tears. I was crying because I had my shirt off in front of other women. Okay? I was like, I can't be around people without my shirt on because it's for Becca and it's for not anybody else, right? And I was just sincerely upset about that, right? Okay? She said, I know you love your mom because at one point I was begging like the guy in the ambulance, please don't call my mom, please don't call my mom, please don't call my mom. And it wasn't like a don't call my mom because I'm going to be in trouble. It was a don't call my mom because my mom's in really bad health. And I was genuinely afraid that if she found out something happened to me, it would like kill my mom. Because my mom's a worrier, right? And so we don't tell my mom stuff until we've got not only the problem, but the solution to the problem. And it's like, I know that, right? But my wife also told me that I talked about you guys quite a bit. And at one point I was crying because I thought I disappointed y'all. At another point I was very insistent that she send Josiah a text message, tell Josiah, good job for beating me. And like, but anyway, but I talked about you guys quite a bit too. All that's simply to say, you've probably heard that at the end of your life, and none of us are at the end of our life, so I don't know if this is true, but I've heard people talk about this before. At the end of your life, when you know you're about to die, you talk about the things that are important to you, right? Thankfully, I wasn't about to die, although the reason they called the ambulance is because they couldn't find my heartbeat at one point. That's why they put me in a bus, right? I don't think I was dying, but I was out of my mind enough that sort of my mind was engaged, but not fully, and so the things that were important to me were the things that I was talking about, you all being one of them, right? So love was motivating my words, which is really, really important. But love should motivate our actions too, and I do love this acrostic for love. I thought it was pretty cool. It's living our values every day. I wish I was the smart one who came up with that. I'm not, but I really, really like that concept. Love is living our values every day. If you know what values means, it's the things that you believe. Not the things you say you believe, but the things that you actually do. If you tell me that you believe in one thing, but you live an entirely different way, you don't really believe that thing. You believe the things that you do. So your values, excuse me, your values are the things that you pursue. Flip it another way. The things that you are pursuing are the things that you're actually loving. The things that you're representing well, those are the things that you actually love. So I really love that acrostic for love. I think that's really, really good. But look what Jesus said about it. Jesus said this. You probably know the scenario, but if you don't, it's important. Jesus was approached by a lawyer. So a guy who specializes in the law and what's right and what's wrong. And this lawyer walked up to Jesus and says, hey, dude, tell me, what's the most important commandment? And Jesus responds by saying, what? And yes, you can cheat and read the board. What did Jesus say? That's all I'm hearing is wah, 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 right? It's okay. Yes, Jesus just very simply said, if you want the most important law, it's this one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. Or all your heart, mind, and soul. In other words, Jesus is talking about our total selves. Our minds, our bodies, and our spiritual selves. Jesus said that's the most important commandment. Love God in all ways. And then, because Jesus could do this, to go to the next step of the equation, Jesus says, and then you need to love your neighbors as well. And I didn't put this verse up there, but the follow-up verse is really, really important because Jesus then tells the guy, if you do these two things, you will fulfill the entire Old Testament. Okay? How long is the Old Testament? Very long, right? Anybody remember exactly how many books are in the Old Testament? 49. There's 66 total books. There's 49 in the Old Testament, okay? When Jesus said you fulfill all the law and all the prophets, he says the law, he's talking about the things that Moses wrote. The prophets were all of the different things the prophets wrote, who also brought all of God's laws into the equation. Jesus says if you love people and you love God and you love them truly, you will have done everything the Old Testament says to do. That's pretty amazing. Love is the perfect motivator. But here's what I want you to catch. It's not just that we love everybody perfectly. It's actually flipped. Look at these next two verses because these are really, 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 really big. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. Let me back up. Let's look at some good examples of what that looks like. Okay? of what it looks like to love God and to love people well, or in this case, we're going to look at the bad first, what it looks like to not love God and not love people well. You know this first story. It's from 2 Samuel. Look at that verse up there. If you want to flip there, you can. 2 Samuel chapter 11. It's the story of David and Bathsheba, right? Or what's the VeggieTales version? It's David and the rubber ducky, right? Yeah. But what happened, just in a nutshell, for the sake of time, you guys tell me, what happened with David and Bathsheba?
David looked at a girl. He's like, dang, you look pretty pretty.
Okay.
He's like, dang it, that person's married. You know what I'm going to do? Send that person to war and then try and kill them. To which he succeeded and then got the girl. And then God was like, that's not a good thing to do. And then he cried.
Okay, good. It was the very abbreviated version. That's exactly what I asked for, though, Josiah. So check it out. David, actually, verse 1 is pretty interesting, and this is an important part. Verse 1 of that chapter says specifically, at the time of year when kings went to war, which I think is kind of funny. Like, war was such a big deal, war had a season. So in the spring, it wasn't baseball season. It was, okay, let's go to war now. Right? This is kind of how they lived in that day. But it says specifically about David, who, by the way, was a warrior. He was king at this point, yes, but one of David's favorite things to do was to go out and be a warrior, right? He was good at killing. He was really, really good at killing. But this particular war season, instead of going out to war, he stays home. And then it says that at night he would walk around on top of his castle. And then it says he looked over in a particular lady's yard and saw that she was bathing, which that was normal, girls. You didn't have showers. You just took your bath out in the backyard. Okay? And normally it wasn't a big deal because no one could see you unless somebody lived up high in a castle. They could see down upon you. David sees Bathsheba, says, yes, she's really pretty. Go get her. They have sex. She gets pregnant. In an effort to try to cover his sins, long story short, he kills the guy. But here's what, and a lot of you going, yeah, we know that story. Here's what you may not know about the story to me that really makes this fascinating. Bathsheba wasn't just some woman. Okay? David knew exactly who she was because David knew exactly who her husband was. Bathsheba's husband was a guy named Uriah, and Uriah wasn't just any guy in the army. Uriah was a part of what's known as David's mighty men. And David's mighty men, to give you a really simple analogy, was the secret service for the king of the day. In fact, the secret service for David, even before he was the king. Uriah was one of David's oldest and longest friends. David knew exactly who Bathsheba was. David knew exactly who Uriah was. So knowing that, not that, before this, you hear this story about, man, David, that was really lousy. Like, took another dude's wife and killed him. Now that you know that Uriah was one of David's best friends, that makes it even more lousy now, right? I say this simply to say, at least in this particular moment, David was motivated not at all by love. David was motivated purely by lust. And he gave into that, right? But he's not the only example of that. Here's a few others, and you guys maybe know at least one or two of these stories. Look at this next section. You know the story of Samson. Samson was a man whore, man. He was all the time. He was. He really, really was. Samson was all the time chasing women. And he never, in all the times it talks about Samson chasing a girl, it was never like, wow, she's really godly. I want to marry her someday. It was, she's really, really good looking. I want to go get with her. And at least the first time he did this, he tried to marry her. After that point, and his marriage went south, he literally just saw a woman and thought she was pretty, and so he just started sleeping with them. And it reaches the point where he was frequenting prostitutes. Okay? Samson was highly motivated, not by love, not for love for God or other people, just by lust. Jacob, you guys know his story about how Jacob had 2 wives. How did Jacob end up with 2 wives? He got cheated, yes. But here's what's interesting. Jacob. Jacob shows up at this farm, okay? And yes, we're dealing with probably second cousins at this point. He shows up at the farm of his second cousins, and he sees one of his cousins and goes, wow, she's really pretty. Hey, I want to marry her. And her dad said, you can marry her if you work for me for 7 years. And he says, no problem, right? And he does that. It's actually kind of sweet. It says that time passed very, very quickly because he was highly motivated out of love for this girl, right? But the other part that the Bible gets to here in a second is he didn't like the older sister. And it says specifically that he didn't like her because of her eyes. And it just says she had weak eyes. And the best idea that's given is that probably meant she was cross-eyed. Okay? Listen to me. Okay. she was cross-eyed. Keep in mind how women in the Middle East dressed. They always had a veil on, right? So more or less, that's all you could see was just a cross-eyed woman. So if you have to pick between a cross-eyed woman or a non-cross-eyed woman, he picked the non-cross-eyed woman. But father-in-law tricked him and gave him, her name was Leah, gave him Leah to be his wife at first. And it says that Jacob didn't want anything to do with her, even though it was his wife. Why? Because of the way she looked. He was highly, highly motivated. At least in this one's a little bit twisted. I think he genuinely loved Rachel. In fact, the Bible says he genuinely loved Rachel. So he got put in a bad position. But the whole thing started off a lust, right? This last one is one of the saddest, sickest stories in the entire Bible. This guy named Amnon, he was one of the sons of David, and he fell in love with his sister. Yeah. She was a half-sister, but it was still a sister. But here, when I say he fell in love with her, he really didn't love her. Guys, he really didn't love her. He just thought she was really, 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 really good looking, to the point that he rapes her. Okay? And what's really sad was, after he rapes her, he throws her out and says, I don't want anything to do with you ever again. So not only did he raped a woman, that's awful. He did this to his sister, which is doubly awful, right? Again, dude's not even remotely motivated by love. Not for people, not for God. And that's how his life ended up. But let's flip the equation here. You guys know the story of Hosea? It's one of my favorite prophets in the Bible. Long story short, God said to Hosea, which would have thrown him off, hey, Hosea, I want you to go marry a prostitute.
Oh,
Yeah. God, I want you to go marry a prostitute. And I'm sure Hosea said, I'm sorry, what? You want me to do what? I'm like, okay, Hosea was already a prophet. So this would be like if me or basically any pastor you know who preaches on a regular basis, God said to him, I want you to go to Amsterdam and marry one of the women who work in the red light district and bring them back to America and make her your wife, right? That would be pretty crazy. If I were in that situation, I would be saying, I don't think that's God. I just don't, Lord, did I have some cold medicine today? I just don't think that's what's going on, right? Okay, so here's the deal. Hosea obeys and he marries a prostitute. And sure enough, the two of them, it's interesting. The two of them begin to have children. And the Bible doesn't actually say they're Hosea's kids. Because she's a prostitute. Yeah. But they have kids together. Whether or not they're his kids, we don't know. But he raises these children as his own for sure. And then it reaches a point where she just totally leaves him to go be a total prostitute. Like, she abandons their marriage. And it reaches a point where she actually gets sold into slavery. And then God says to her, hey, she's still your wife. Go get her. Hosea says, okay. And so it's interesting. Again, it doesn't talk about what Hosea was feeling. We can only assume. And I don't know what I would feel in that situation. But we know he obeys God out of love for God. And then it's amazing. Hosea chapter 3, it talks about the way that Hosea actually says that he woos her, which is pretty neat. The idea of wooing, guys, is think about you flirting. Okay? You're trying to get a girl's attention. He begins to woo his wife. He begins to work to earn her affection to the point where she trusts him and loves him as well. It's an amazing thing. As you think about somebody that does you wrong in that way, the last thing you want to do is to try to woo her. You want to whack her, right? Totally. But out of love for her and out of love for God, Hosea was highly motivated. And the last one, again, you know this story. Joseph, you've ever seen Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat? It's actually funny the way they present this, right? But Joseph, in chapter 39, Joseph is a slave. He's living in Potiphar's house. And Potiphar's wife, it actually says specifically, Joseph's probably in his late, he's 18, 19, maybe 20, 21. He's a young guy, he's a hardworking guy, he's a good-looking guy. Potiphar's wife frequently tries to seduce him. Says, hey, come sleep with me. And he always says to her, no. And what's interesting, what he says to her, it would be a wicked thing to my God to do this. What's motivating Joseph? Love for who? Love for God. But it's interesting, even though he's a slave in the household, he's also motivated by his love for Potiphar too, which is incredible, man. If somebody made me their slave, it would be really, really hard for me to love them. But he points out to her too, you're a married woman and I belong to God. This is wrong on every level. So out of love for your husband, and I hope out of love for your husband, that you wouldn't do this, I'm not going to do this, and out of love for my God, I'm not going to do this either. And here's the point. Love is going to be what motivates you far more than fear of getting an STD or getting a girl pregnant, or just even the fear of having to admit, I slept with this guy, or I slept with that girl, or getting caught, or whatever. All of those things, those fears are real, and they'll somewhat keep you out of trouble, but I promise you what will motivate you so much better, and what we see from the scriptures, what motivates us to real purity is a genuine love for God, and then a genuine love for the people that, not only the people that you're potentially sleeping with, but also the people that they're married to and their families. You're thinking about others like on multiple levels. So here's what, a dear friend of mine, man. I remember in college, before either one of us were married, somebody pointed out to us, it was another youth pastor. I almost hit the guy. We were at a concert, and this guy was telling his students, hey, look at that girl. Look at her butt. It's okay. She's godly. You can look at her butt. What the crap are you doing, man? Hey, we're all like, I think I'm 19 or 20 at the time, and so this guy's telling his students, his guy specifically, to look at the other Christian girls. It's okay because they're godly. And so my buddy and I literally wanted to punch him, right? But we sit this guy down like, you can't, this is wrong every single way, man. But I love what my friend said to this guy. He says to this dude, he says, dude, listen, I don't know whose wife that is. I just know it's not mine. Think about that statement. Isn't that good? I don't know whose girl's that wife. And again, we're talking about teenage girls. So putting yourselves in this situation, right? If I'm talking to a young man, the girls that I know is checking you out. And I've said this to guys a lot over this years. Look, dude, I don't know whose wife she is someday. I just know she's not yours. Maybe she will be someday, but she's not yet. And since you don't know that, then you don't have the right to treat her in that way or to look at her in that way. But if you'll start to think about your spouse now, and again, I don't know who my spouse is. I know you don't. But if you'll start to think about your spouse now and how much you're going to love them someday, and you'll start to love them now by letting love for them, and then more importantly, letting love for God motivate you to make the right decisions. Guys, I promise you, temptations all of a sudden start to look a whole lot smaller. All right? Check these two verses out. These are both really, really good. I love 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 15 and 14 and 15. It actually starts off and it says, but Christ's love compels us. Or actually the better translation is Christ's love controls us. It's the thing that causes us to do the right thing. Now in this instance, the context is Christ's love is what causes us to go out and to share the gospel with the world. But in Ephesians chapter 5, it makes the statement that says that we're supposed to walk in love in verse 2. And then verse 3 is where it immediately jumps into, so stay away from sexual immorality. So love is the thing that's going to cause us to stay away from sexual immorality. Sexual immorality, by the way, is any kind of sex that you can have that's not with your spouse. Just to keep it really, really simple. Okay, so there's that. When I roll this next, I just thought this was funny. You guys ever see the lava challenge? Yeah. I really like lava challenge videos are fun. I found this afternoon. The floor is Potiphar's wife, right? So he's staying away from it. It's really, really good. Okay, now look at this next thing. Yeah, go ahead and throw up that first verse, Kate. Did God really say? Genesis chapter 3. You probably know the story. Okay, snake starts talking to Eve. That by itself is crazy, but the snake specifically comes up to Eve and says this question. Hey, Eve, did God really say you're not supposed to eat this fruit? And what Satan did, long story short, is Satan is planting a seed of doubt in her mind. And the doubt was really, really simple. Is God really giving you all of his good things? Can you really trust God? And here's the thing, guys. This is Satan's still probably his favorite trick. Is to plant seeds of doubt in all of our minds. When it comes to obeying God or not, Satan's going to come and plant this thought in your head. Did God really say that? And did God really say that? Just as another way of saying, can you really trust God? I mean, does God really know what he's talking about? I mean, I know he said don't have sex until you get married, but really, is that what he really meant? And next week we're going to get into some of the more specifics of the big question of, is this okay and is this not okay and is this part okay and it's not okay? We'll get into that next week, right? But really, this question is just weighs heavy in people's minds. Again, not just in the sex issue, but lots of issues. Did God really mean it when he said, don't do this thing? And can I trust God? Like, is God withholding good from me by telling me, no, I can't have this thing, whatever it is that I know that he said? Okay? So that's the big question. Here's the big answer, and I think this is good. I call this the fishbowl principle. Okay? Anybody have a fish? Fish at home? No? A few of you? Okay, so, stay with me. I want you to think about something. And I've used this analogy a few times already with some of you. This is one of my absolute most famous teaching points. I've been doing it for years. I don't remember if I came with this or somebody taught me this. I've been doing it so long. But think about this. Fish in a fishbowl. Goldfish are pretty boring. I don't know if it's fun to live in a fishbowl or not. Thankfully, I don't think goldfish think too terribly much. Right. There you go. Okay, but think about this. Let's say the fish is looking outside the fishbowl and he sees all the things that you're doing in your bedroom. You've got a pet fish. And the fish thinks to himself, you know what? Life in here's pretty boring. I want to do what Keelan's doing out there. And so the fish jumps out of his fishbowl and attempt to sing or dance or watch TV or whatever, okay? The fishbowl jumps out of the fish. If the fish jumps out of the fishbowl, what happens to the fish? He dies. Okay? Now, follow me. This is important. Is it a guarantee that the fish is going to die if the fish jumps out of the fishbowl? No. Why? There might be water out there. There's no water for the... Someone might come by and pick the fish back up. But there's going to be consequences. It's going to be painful for the fish, right? Absolutely. Here's the principle I want you to catch. Not just when it comes to sex. Listen to me. All of God's standards for us are like a fishbowl. And when I say they're like a fishbowl, I mean that they are designed not to ruin our fun. God's standards are actually designed to protect us. They're God's way of loving us. You guys have probably heard this analogy before, but I'm a dad of 3 kids. Some of y'all know my kids. Some of you babysit my kids, right? So if I tell my kids, no, you can't play in the street, is that because I'm mean? Absolutely. Okay, so if your fish could talk to you, say you're living in the Dr. Seuss world, your fish can talk to you now. And your fish says, hey, I want to come out there with you, and you tell your fish no. Is it because you're mean? No. It's because you love your fish. Yes. And the best place for you to be, if you are the fish, the best place for your fish to be is inside the fishbowl. That is where life can happen for you, and only life can happen for you. Even though things outside the fishbowl may look really, 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 really good. There's all sorts of dangers outside the fishbowl. Like, for instance, look at this. Kate, you there? Jordan's flirting with Kate. Yeah. And this is important. Go ahead and hit it one more time for me, Kate. Yeah. John 10:10. John 10:10 is a verse, guys, you need to memorize. It's a big, big deal. John 10:10 says, the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come that you may have life more abundantly. Okay? Jesus is talking that. In fact, John chapter 10 is one of the coolest chapters in the Bible, one of the coolest sermons of Jesus's. Jesus actually makes the statement to his disciples, and when he's talking about how good of a shepherd he is to his people. Okay? It's all about how he's come to lead us and protect us. Jesus makes the statement, look, you need to know this. The life I'm giving you is the best life you can imagine. Everything that you need in life is what I'm giving you. But the opposite, or the person that's coming after you, is the devil. And it's not just that the devil wants to trick you. The devil wants to destroy you. Actually, it's pretty interesting. At one point, Jesus said to Peter, Peter was talking to Jesus, and Peter says, hey, Peter, Satan literally wants to rip you to pieces. He hates you so badly. I'd imagine if like, wow, man, that's pretty intense, right? That's what Satan wants to do. So Jesus talking to all the disciples, look, Satan hates you. He wants to steal from you, he wants to kill you, and then he wants to destroy you. That destroy, by the way, that's hell. Okay? So he wants to take the things that I've given to you and ruin them, and then he literally wants to end your life, and he wants you to go to hell. That's what Satan has for you. When I talk about the fishbowl principle, this, guys, when God lays out his standards for us, and again, these apply to the sex rules, but they apply to all of God's rules and all of God's standards, both the things that he doesn't want us to do and the things that he does want us to do. They're there to give us life and to protect us. So don't look at God's rules as like a leash around your neck. Look at them as a protective barrier around your life, like a fishbowl. And it's so much better, so much easier to understand. And I put that lion face on there. 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 8 through 10. It's really, really interesting. It actually describes Satan as a lion, like a lion. He's not a lion, but he's like a lion. He's prowling around the earth, looking for someone to devour. And then it brings up sex again. Sex is one of the tools that he's looking to use to destroy you. All right, so we've got a couple more things we're going to look at and then we're done. All right? The best sex ever. I promise this is true. This is pretty fun. Didn't format right. Sorry. So, the most comprehensive study of sexual activity ever done in world history was done by University of Chicago. The reason the university did it and not the government is because it was so controversial, the government wouldn't fund it. Okay? And so they surveyed thousands and thousands of people all across the world, and they asked them all sorts of questions about their sex life. Not only have you done it, how frequently you do it, do you enjoy doing it, do you enjoy doing it in these ways? They asked questions about heterosexual sex and homosexual sex and everything in between. But here's what, among other things, that they found that's fascinating to me. And it's really, really simple. It's just this. The people who are having the most sex on planet Earth and the people who are having the best sex on planet Earth are married couples in healthy, committed relationships. And it's even more true of Christian couples. Now, some of us could go, wow, that's really awesome. If we know and believe the Bible, that should be a giant, fantastic duh thing for us, right? Now, this is where, some of you, wait a second, that means my parents are, yes, that means your parents are, right? Probably frequently. And here's what's really, really cool, guys. Listen to me. Here's what's cool, and I've already showed you this a couple of times. I'm showing you another passage, though, tonight. See, there's lots and lots of verses, and these are the ones you guys know because of the reputation that a lot of people have, or the reputation sex has amongst the world. The world looks at the Bible as a giant, fantastic no. Like, no. You can't have sex. You can't do it this way. You can't do it that way. Blah, blah, blah. And actually, the Bible talks about having sex in the positive sense a lot. 1 Corinthians chapter 7, there's 3 verses in here. It's pretty interesting. It actually says specifically, husbands, have sex with your wives frequently. Wives, have sex with your husbands frequently. Wives, your bodies belong to your husbands. Husbands, your body belongs to your wife. And the only reason, this is really kind of funny to me, the only reason you should stop having sex is if there's an issue big enough in your life that you need to pray really, really hard about that. And so make an agreement on how long you're going to pray about that issue, and then the second that issue's over, go back to having sex again. And here's what's cool. God says that, and it's so that you won't be enticed or tempted to sin. So God actually gives us sex, number 1, for procreation. We looked at that week 1. Number 2, it's for pleasure. And there's an entire book called the Song of Solomon that's all about how pleasurable sex is. Okay? And that was put in there for a reason. And then number 3, sex is given to us for protection. Actually, God gave us, it's because you're listening to every 5 words I say. No, that's not, I didn't say. God says use protection when you're having sex. Sex is designed to be a protective thing. When you're in a healthy, committed marriage relationship, your spouse, it's really neat, your spouse battles for your purity by having sex with you. And you're supposed to work with each other in that confine. It's an amazing thing. So, Christians are having the most sex. You need to know that. It's not porn stars. It's not athletes. It's not musicians. It's not the richest, most powerful people on the planet. Christians, married couples, are having the most sex, but they're also having the most satisfying sex. It's really cool. We can see that from the scriptures, which is awesome. But sociology, and actually, again, the most widely regarded study on sex ever done says that too. It's really, really cool. All right, we're almost done. Born-again virgin. You hear me use that term, born again virgin, what do you think? Virgin what? You think of virgin air, is that what you said? Okay. Yeah. Or virgin mobile, okay, yeah. So yes, listen to me. Yes, I use the logo from Virgin Mobile and Virgin Air, Virgin Records. Okay, don't think about those things. Just think about the word and then put the phrase born again in front of it. So born again virgin. What do you think that means? What does the phrase born again mean? Reborn, good. Or saved, yeah, we use that phrase saved a lot too. Okay, born again is the phrase that Jesus used when he was describing salvation to Nicodemus. He says, hey, you need to be born again. Nicodemus says, I've already been born once, I can't be born again. See, yeah, you can, you need to be. Your life needs to be totally, 100% completely changed by God, and only God can do this. So when I use the phrase born again virgin, here's what I'm talking about. I know, statistically speaking, and because of what I know about teenagers, there is a high probability that there are multiple people in this room who have not just thought about sex, you've already had sex. And maybe you haven't had full-blown intercourse, but you've had like parts of sex. Again, it's highly probable that's the case. For instance, I know how prominent oral sexual activity is amongst teenagers. It's ridiculous, okay? Or even just, maybe you haven't done any of those things, you've just messed around with somebody, or maybe you've just touched people inappropriately. Here's the deal. When you hear me talking about this, and we're going to keep talking about it for a few more weeks, it's very, very easy for you as you're listening to these sermons to sink down into your chair a little bit farther and a little bit farther and a little bit farther because you start to think, crap, I've already screwed up. Or you might be thinking, well, I've already screwed up, so it doesn't matter. I'll just check out because who cares anymore? And guys, I can't emphasize to you enough how much it does matter. Just because you've sinned one time in any area does not mean, it's the absolute beauty of our faith, it does not mean that you have to continue to sin in that way. One of the biggest powers of the gospel is the fact that Jesus has made a way for us to be freed from sin, even the ones that we've already done once or twice or 20 times or whatever. So if you are somebody in this category who's already done it, you've already messed up in any of these fashions, I want you to hear something so important. Let me look at these verses because these are a big deal. Okay? 4 of them. In fact, I want to read these to you. Romans 5:20. I can't. Y'all flip there because I want you to see this. Romans 5:20. Listen to this. This is so good. Now the law has come in to increase the trespass, but where sin increased, grace has abounded all the more, so that as sin reigned in death, grace also might reign through righteousness, leading to eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord. Here's the deal. If you are somebody who's messed up, and you know it, number one, you need to know, yes, Jesus did in fact die for that sin. And yes, Jesus can absolutely forgive that sin. And yes, he can even forgive that sin more than once. It's entirely possible there's somebody in here who's had sex multiple times with multiple people. That doesn't mean, and I don't want you to raise your hand and volunteer information. I want you to just listen. You need to know, I promise you, Jesus' blood is good enough for you. Jesus' grace is deep enough for you. You can't, if you want to put it in these terms, you can't out-sin grace. It's impossible. There is a way, and it's already been accomplished for you to be forgiven. This is a huge deal. Look at Ephesians chapter 4, verse 32. You guys probably know this one, but I want you to hear it again because this applies how we affect one another. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 32, it says, I'll read you verse, no, there you go. Be kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another as Christ has forgiven you. This applies to how we deal with one another. So I've already told you, God has made a way for you to be forgiven, but he's also made a way for us to forgive one another. Because it's entirely possible that you're a person in this room who's done those things we're talking about, and there's other people in the room who know this about you. And there's something we're terrible about as Christians. We're awful about it. When I say awful about it, I mean this is awful about us. We're actually really good at doing this. If I haven't committed a sin that you have, I'm really, really good about making you feel like crap about that thing. I'm awesome at it. And I don't mean like just me. I mean we as Christians. We're awesome at doing that. Christ has taught us the opposite of doing that, though. It says, look, because I've not held that person's sins against them, you don't get to hold it. In fact, it's a sin for you to hold somebody else's sins against them. It's a sin for you to not forgive. It's an amazing thing. Hey, 1 John 1:9, you should know this verse is one of the ones you got to memorize, guys. It says, if we confess our sins, Jesus is faithful and just to forgive us of our sins and cleanse us of all unrighteousness. And I've had the words be specific up there. Here's this. Whatever it is you've done, and by the way, this doesn't just apply to sexual sins, this applies to all of them. Whatever it is that you've done, Christ can and wants to forgive you. He wants for you to be born again. He wants to make your life renewed. And yes, virgin is a technical term about your body. But in the mind of Jesus, and if you marry a believer someday, in the mind of that believer, you have the opportunity, even if you've already blown it on this issue, to become a born-again virgin, meaning you are just as pure as anybody who's never had sex once in their entire life. Because Christ has forgiven you, and your brothers and sisters in Christ have forgiven you. And someday, whether you marry somebody who's never had sex, or you've married somebody who's had sex before, because you've already forgiven each other, you're good as new. You got to know that. Here's the mistake I made last week, and I finished before I got to grace, and I'm not going to do that anymore, guys. You got to know Christ's blood is for you, even and especially in this area. So I'm going to pray. I'm going to go to our groups. You've got a few questions to answer. Should have a fun conversation with them, the opportunity to pray. But guys, please, 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 if you're somebody that has messed up in this area, I say messed up, if you're somebody that's intentionally sinned in this area, or unintentionally. When I say unintentionally, I mean if somebody's forced something on you. We're going to talk more about that next week, because that is a big deal. And by the way, I really believe God's got something special for you to hear. But if you've messed up, or if somebody's hurt you sexually, would you please come talk to me? And if you don't want to talk to me, I understand. Listen, Kate's ready to talk to you as well. All right? And that's not because I want you to come and confess your sins and tell me how awful this is something we want to help you with. We love you enough that I know how much the devil loves to shame the crap out of us when we screw up. And one of the ways that God does away with shame is not only for him to heal our hearts, but to use your brothers and sisters in Christ, to use your leaders in your life to help you know that Satan's lying to you. So please, please, please come talk to us. We want to help you. All right? Let me pray and we'll get done. Lord God, thank you for today. Thank you for your word. Lord, and thank you for loving us enough to put us in the fishbowl. Or at least you try to put us in the fishbowl. God, Satan from the start lied to our father Adam, lied to our mother Eve about how you can't be trusted, how you're trying to withhold good from us, and how, Lord, we can doubt the things you've said to us. And we don't have to, Father. You are perfect in all your words and all your ways, and you want good and perfect things for us, and you've given that to us, Lord, even and especially in this sexual area. Sex is an awesome gift. Help us to view it in that light. Help us to trust your words in this light. But if somebody's messed up tonight, God, I beg you in Jesus' name, help them. Lord, encourage their hearts. Bless their hearts, Father. Genuinely bless their hearts. Help them know they're forgiven, and then give them the courage to speak up. Bless our time in your word and our groups. Lord, help us to love each other today. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I love you guys. I'll see you later.